My name is Sherry. I'm 29 years old. The last thing I remember before everything went black was a red light and the sound of screeching tires. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital bed, an IV in my arm, the sterile scent of antiseptic burning my nose. My entire body ached, ribs throbbing, head pounding, vision swimming. But what really hit me wasn't the pain. It was my mom's voice, cold, sharp, practical. "We need to get you discharged before this starts costing more." No, "Oh my God, you're alive." No, "How are you feeling?" Just numbers, money, as if I were a bill that needed cutting down. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd misheard her. The world was spinning. My thoughts were scattered. I tried to blink the dizziness away, but when I focused again, she was still standing there. Arms crossed, lips pressed thin, already annoyed. My dad hovered awkwardly near the door, eyes glued to his phone. The nurse had just finished explaining that I had a mild concussion, heavy bruising along my ribs, and possibly a small fracture. "She needs observation," she said kindly. "At least one more night, just to make sure there's no internal bleeding," but my mom was already shaking her head. "We'll handle it at home." No reason to waste thousands for her to lie in bed. That was her priority, on saving money. Not saving me, and here's the part that still stings to admit. I didn't fight her. I didn't have it in me. Between the fog in my head and the years of conditioning to not be difficult, I just nodded weakly. I'd spent so long trying not to be a burden that I didn't even know how to demand care. Somewhere along the way, I'd given her medical proxy rights, just in case. I thought it meant safety, that if I couldn't speak for myself, she'd protect me. I never imagined she'd use it against me. They wheeled me out of the hospital that same evening. My dad half-carried me to the car while my mom argued with the billing department about the insurance codes. On the drive home, they were on speaker with my sister Sophie, laughing, planning their upcoming vacation. "We'll have to leave early to make the flight," Mom said. "Did you pack enough sunscreen?" Meanwhile, I sat in the back seat, holding a pillow against my ribs, trying not to cry from the pain of every bump in the road. When we got home, they set me up in the guest room with a bottle of ibuprofen and a half-empty glass of water. "Try to rest," Mom said briskly. "We're leaving early in the morning. Nate said he might stop by." My cousin Nate, a second-year med student who once asked if you could get rabies from touching a squirrel. That was their idea of aftercare. They left before sunrise. No check-ins, no emergency contacts on the fridge, no groceries stocked, just a text later that day from Mom. "Let us know if Nate comes by." He didn't. By the second night, I couldn't stand for more than 30 seconds. My vision tilted every time I moved. I crawled to the bathroom once, gripping the floor tiles to stay conscious. I thought about calling an ambulance, but when I checked my phone, I realized my wallet and cards were still in the kitchen. And when I opened my banking app to order an Uber, my heart stopped. $6.74. That was all that was left in my account. 3 years of careful saving and gone. I refreshed the app, checked the transaction history. There it was, the transfer. My mother's name beside it. My chest went cold. I called her. She answered on the third ring, sounding bright and breezy, like nothing was wrong. "Hey, sweetie. Everything okay? We just got to the resort. The Wi-Fi's awful." I swallowed the anger in my throat. "Did you transfer my savings?" A pause. Then matter-of-factly, "Yes, I moved it." "Don't freak out." "Mom, that was all my money." "I didn't take it," she interrupted. "I moved it. To protect it. Protect it from who? From me?" Her sigh crackled through the phone. "Honey, you're not thinking clearly. You've had a shock. You're emotional. You'd just do something rash. You always do when you're upset." "I was trying to get back to the hospital," I said quietly. "You don't need to go back," she replied in that sing-song, patronizing tone she used whenever she wanted to shut down an argument. "Nate said you'll be fine with rest. We'll transfer the money back when you're better. Just relax, okay? You always overreact when you're stressed." My fingers trembled around the phone. "Mom, you emptied my account." "That's theft. Watch your tone," she snapped, and then immediately softened her voice like she realized she'd said too much. "We love you, honey. Don't make this bigger than it needs to be." Then she hung up. 2 minutes later, a text buzzed in. "Don't make a scene. We'll talk when we're home. Love you." I stared at the message until the screen went black. And something inside me, the part that kept excusing, forgiving, explaining their behavior, finally broke. It wasn't the accident that shattered me. Not the crash, not the concussion, not the pain that made every breath feel like fire. It was that voice. That calm, self-righteous tone explaining why it made sense to steal from me, for my own good. They hadn't forgotten me. They'd abandoned me on purpose. They'd taken everything I'd built, the one thing that represented freedom, and justified it as parenting. That was the moment the guilt burned off like smoke, because they hadn't just ignored me. They'd used me. All those years of paying their bills, helping Sophie, being the responsible one. It wasn't love. It was utility. I was their backup plan, their bank, their emotional landfill. And when I was no longer useful, they discarded me without hesitation. So I stopped making excuses. I stopped trying to make them see. I stopped trying. Period. I didn't text her back. I didn't call Sophie. I didn't try to reason or beg. Instead, I picked up the phone. Not for a doctor, not for a therapist. Not to plead my case to people who'd already decided I wasn't worth it. I picked it up for something else. Because that was the night I stopped being the girl who tolerated everything. And I started becoming the woman who was going to make them regret ever underestimating me. I called Eric. Eric isn't just a lawyer. He's a friend, an actual friend. One of the few people who ever saw through the polite version of me, the one that smiled too much and apologized for everything and asked what I was really thinking. We met in college, he used to say. I'd make a great designer and a terrible doormat. I didn't know how right he was until now. He picked up after 2 rings, Sherry. I didn't cry. I didn't even say hi. I just said, I need help. And he said, Oi, start from the top. So I told him everything. The accident, the hospital, the forced discharge, the hay, the bank account, the savings, the silence, all of it. He listened. Really listened, not in that that's crazy way people do when they're already half distracted. Hesked questions, took notes, paused. When I said I wasn't sure if it sounded bad enough, he said it's worse than bad enough. It's financially exploitative and medically negligent. And then he said something I wasn't expecting. We can do something about this legally. I'd always assumed family stuff stayed in the emotional gray zone. That you couldn't call it abuse if there were no bruises. That you couldn't call it theft if you gave them access. That suing your parents was the kind of thing only soap opera villains did. But Eric explained it clearly. I had a strong civil case. They'd taken thousands from an account that wasn't theirs. They'd overridden medical decisions with no regard for safety. They'd left me alone, injured, and without access to care or money, while knowingly relying on me for financial support. For years, he said we'd start with a demand letter, that we'd lay out the timeline, the fax the bank records, that if they didn't respond or try to retaliate, we'd escalate. And he asked me one more thing, are you sure you want to go through with this? I said yes. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I wanted to make a scene, but because for the first time in my entire life, I wanted out completely, cleanly, permanently. So we filed it, started with an envelope. A legal courier delivered it. 3 days later, the morning, my parents and Sophie returned from their vacation. They came back tanned and laughing, dragging their wheeled suitcases across the driveway like they hadn't left a body cooling in the guest room. I wasn't there, but he was. Eric answered the door, according to the neighbor across the street, who watches everything through her blinds. It was chaos, yelling accusations, my mom shouting, "Are you serious? Right now, she's suing us." My dad swearing under his breath and Sophie asking, "What the hell is this about?" Eric didn't say much, just handed over the paperwork and gave them a card. The text started rolling in about 30 minutes later. First, my mom, "You're doing this really after everything we've done for you." Then my sister, "You're being insane. You're not thinking clearly." Then my dad, who never text, "We need Todoc. This isn't the way." I didn't respond, he said. I emailed them one message, one attachment PDF titled, "In case you forgot inside, screenshots of every bank transfer I'd made to cover the mortgage bills, groceries, Sophie's textbooks, a copy of the discharge report from the hospital, screenshots of the text thread, me asking for help, no replies, a detailed bank statement showing exactly when they transferred my savings and where at the last page was a copy of the demand letter Eric had written, outlining the legal damages we were seeking, reimbursement of the full stolen amount, plus additional compensation for medical negligence and emotional distress. I didn't write a single word in the email body, just the file. They opened it. Then the real panic started. My mom called 7 times in a row. Then again, then Sophie called. Then Rachel, my cousin, then my aunt. Word was spreading. Suddenly, everyone remembered I existed. I started getting messages that sounded more like guilt than concern. "We didn't mean to hurt you. You've always been part of the family, Sherry. We just thought we were doing what's best." Somehow I was still the irrational one, the emotional one, the problem, not the one who'd been left behind, not the one who'd been paying their bills for the last 4 years while getting mocked for working from home, not the one who'd nearly died and been abandoned with nothing, but a half-used bottle of ibuprofen and a cracked phone. But that's the thing about people like them. They only love you when you're useful. And I'd finally stopped being useful. So, I stopped answering. I shut down my part of the joint family phone plan, changed my bank accounts, moved out quietly. I found a studio apartment downtown. It's tiny and the windows stick, and there's a weird smell in the hallway. I haven't figured out yet, but it's mine. I cook what I want. I work in peace. I have my own key, my own mailbox, and a space heater that hums at night like a lullaby. Eric checks in every few days with legal updates. The case is moving forward. They haven't responded formally yet. Just more emails begging me to drop it. But I won't, because this isn't about money anymore. It's about what it means to say you can't do this to me. Not again. Not ever. It's about letting the screaming happen on the other side of a door. You never have to walk through again. And it's about remembering that I wasn't crazy or dramatic or impulsive. I was just finally done. It got better. It should probably start there, because I realized after everything happened that no one had actually asked. Not once. Not how are you healing. Not is your pain better. Not did the headaches go away. But yes, I recovered. Not overnight. And definitely not thanks to any homemade remedies or well wishes from the people who were supposed to care. It took time, weeks of quiet rest, real doctors, visits a physical therapist who didn't treat me like a nuisance. A few days where I broke down in the middle of brushing my teeth because my ribs still ached, and I didn't know if I'd ever feel safe in my own body again. But eventually I got better. I found a new doctor, paid out of pocket with help from a friend who floated me a small loan, and got the kind of care I should have received from the start. And once I moved out of that house, the one that somehow felt colder than the hospital, I started breathing again, like actually breathing deep, full breaths that didn't feel like a luxury. I think that was the moment I knew I was really done with them. When I realized that healing was something, they actively stood in the way of the lawsuit. That was just a formality. Eric handled everything. He was calm, steady, and absolutely ruthless. He didn't let me second-guess as myself. Every time I said, "Do you think I'm taking it too far?" he replied, "Sherry, this isn't personal. It's legal and you're completely within your rights." It believed him. My parents, on the other hand, thought it was a bluff. They ignored the initial paperwork, pretended it didn't matter. My mom kept sending messages like, "You'll regret this. Families don't sue each other." My dad texted once to say enough. "You made your point." As if this was all some dramatic performance, and I was overdue for my curtain call. But the longer they ignored it, the more it cost them eventually. Eric made it clear we were ready to take it to court. And then, like magic, they wanted to talk. They offered to settle quietly. No admission of guilt, of course. Is it a transfer and agreement that we would all move on? If I dropped everything. I didn't respond right away. I let them wait 2 days. Then I told Eric, "Take the deal. But I want every dollar back, every cent they took, and a written acknowledgement that I am not responsible for any of their future bills." He said, "Done." The money hit my account on a Tuesday morning. I was sitting on the floor of my new apartment, eating dry cereal out of a mug, because I hadn't unpacked my bowls yet. I stared at the screen for a full minute, watching the numbers update, watching my savings, the ones I'd worked years for, reappear like they'd never left. And for the first time since the crash, I felt like myself again. They hadn't won. They hadn't broken me, but they were definitely starting to break. I didn't have to do much to know that. Word got around. A few extended relatives reached out with vague, "Hope you're okay," messages that tread like coded apologies. One of my aunts hinted that my parents were under a lot of financial pressure lately, and that Sophie was having a hard time adjusting. I didn't ask for details, but I heard enough. The mortgage payments were late. The utility bills weren't covered. The grocery money they'd come to rely on wasn't showing up anymore. I imagine the house felt a lot bigger without me in it. Empty rooms, empty fridge, empty bank account. Sophie posted something vague and bitter on Instagram about people who can't take a joke and being stabbed in the back by family. I didn't engage. I just muted her account and went back to my real life. And then, like clockwork, my mom emailed me. No subject line, just a wall of text. Sherry, you've made your point. I think it's time we let this go. Families fight, but they don't hold grudges. You've always been the responsible one. We never meant to hurt you. Things got messy. And yes, we may have overstepped, but we're still your family. Can't we move forward from this? She didn't mention the money or the hospital, or the part where she left me alone and took my savings without a second thought. Just guilt-polished, passive-aggressive guilt wrapped in nostalgia and nice words. I read it twice, then forwarded it to Eric and blocked her number. I didn't cry. I didn't feel vindicated. It just felt quiet, and sometimes that's enough. I live alone now, 1-bedroom apartment, nothing fancy. The walls are a little thin, and the oven makes a strange ticking sound, but it's mine. I pay my own bills. I make my own grocery list. I go to physical therapy once a month just to make sure my shoulder doesn't stiffen up again. I bought a secondhand couch and a decent lamp, and when I sit on that couch at night, with the lamp casting this soft glow over the room, I feel something I hadn't felt in years. The thing no one tells you about cutting off family is that it's not dramatic. It's not a movie scene. There's no climactic screaming match or final door slam. Sometimes it's just silence. No more texts. No more being drained dry. No more tiptoeing around other people's comfort. Just space. Just peace. One night, a few weeks after the settlement, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. They didn't leave a message. Then another call, then a text. Please, Sherry, just talk to me. I didn't recognize the number, but I knew the voice behind it. I didn't reply. Instead, I closed my laptop, turned on the kettle, and watched the water boil. And I thought, this is what they were so afraid of. Not the lawsuit, not the money. Me choosing myself. They'd spent years making sure I believed I wasn't worth saving, that I was lucky to have them, that being useful was the same as being loved. And now I was none of those things. I was just free. They wanted me quiet, broke, and grateful. I'm none of those things anymore. And that's the real win. That's it. That's a story. I know some people will say I went too far, that you don't see your own family, that I should have forgiven them or treated harder, or kept the peace. But honestly, I tried for years, and peace doesn't mean much when you're the only one paying for it. So what do you think? Did I do the right thing? Let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. And if this story hit home for you, or you just want more like it, go ahead and subscribe Scarstone Tales.